All right, so welcome back to GumLoop Basics. This is a course covering the basics of GumLoop. And in the last video, we covered just a quick brief tour of the dashboard and the credits and some of the hub for the different stuff. So in this video here, we're going to look at what are nodes. We're going to be covering the basics of the node systems and how kind of data flows in between these different nodes. We won't get into building any use cases. We're just going to be looking at the different nodes, different types of nodes, and we're going to be looking at how data flows in between all that stuff. So, as you remember from the first video, if you're on a completely blank one, you can either start by adding your first node, or you can click up here on the plus button and it'll show you all the different stuff. So there are many different types of nodes that you can go over. There's going to be things like your basic nodes. There's going to be custom nodes. There's going to be things that you can trigger, or there's going to be like AI nodes or even integrations. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the core nodes first. So these are going to be the things that aren't using other software in order to build it out, or they're natively built within GumLoop itself. So if we take a look, we'll go to the flow basics here. These are different things like inputs, date times, notes, air shields, all different stuff. And so we're going to start with some basic stuff here first. We're going to look at an input. So an input is just looking for some value. So if you're on the free account and you're looking to do stuff, you're probably going to be using these a lot, right? Because you can't sit there and trigger, you can't automatically trigger one of these workflows without at least the first paid tier subscription of GumLoop. And so what we're going to be doing is, let's say we want to pass in some data so that we can start some flow. Okay, so for here, let's just go ahead and pull a random Google sheet, and we're just going to pull in a uh, random Google sheet here. Let's just pull in an invoice here. So we're going to take the URL of an invoice and we'll put it in here. So say this Google Voice or this Google Sheet was an invoice, and let's say that we're doing some invoice processing or something, and for this, our customers are going and they're inputting their invoice into an interface, which we'll cover in another video. But for now, let's just look at the default value of the input. And so there's a couple things that we can do. We can go ahead and we can change the input name. So we can say Google Sheet link. That way people know exactly what it is that we're looking for. And something that I like to do is I actually take the input name and I also change the name of this node. That way, say we are going to connect this. This is how the first part of the how data flows is anything on the bottom, these nodes here, we're going to pull down and be able to connect it to the next node in the logic. So each one of these nodes is a specific function. So if you're familiar with coding at all, a function basically has a predefined thing that it is trying to do, and sometimes it requires an input, and sometimes it provides an output. And so in here, this input is the direct input. And so there is no little linking circle up at the top, similar to this output here. Instead, the value that we put into here is the input for this function, and it is going to output a function. So although this is called an input node, we are manually giving it the input, and it will output something, the result of the input function. In this case, it is retrieving this value. And so this is a very basic node, very basic function. Just basically just in terms of coding, this would just be setting a variable. Let's call it setting a variable. And in this case, the variable is the Google Sheet link that we need. And so it's going to be able to output something. We're actually going to take this here. We're going to move this over here. So after we got rid of the output, what we're going to do is we are going to add let's just do a Google Sheet reader. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag this underneath. and we're, instead of selecting a sheet and logging in, instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to turn on use link here. And so what it is looking for is, now we can see that this little circle is above it. This is looking for some input. And so what we can do is we can drag the output, right? We set the variable in this first node here, this first function, which was just setting a variable, which is the Google Sheet link. We drag the output of that down to this one here. So output, input. And we are looking for a Google link here. And so we can see that this node, we can see that this was the input node, and we can see that it's titled Google Sheet link. So even though we named the input here Google Sheet link, it's actually reading this title up here. So when we go here, it's reading this Google Sheet link is this line here. That's why I like to rename this here, especially if I have multiple inputs. Say we have just a bunch of inputs here. Let me find a couple. If I were to have many different inputs in here and they were all tied into here, you can have as many things input into another function as you want, or another node as you want. But when you go to link something, I'm going to just see input, output. And so that could be really confusing. That's why I like to rename those whenever possible. And so we can put that here, and it's going to be able to pull this whole thing. And so we can find, all right, so because we are inputting a Google Sheet link instead of manually calling it, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the sheet name blank. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to open up this show more options menu, and we can hit configure inputs. And what this is going to do is, instead of being able to drag and drop some input into this field, it's going to ask us to basically type something, okay? And so by turning this one on, the sheet name here, so if it's off, it's going to ask us to basically select from the options. If it is on, it will take away the drop down, and we can either type something in, or we can add something to it, right? And so what's going to happen is, if it's left blank, it's going to just pull the first sheet. And so now we can sit there and we can save, and we can run this, and we'll see, as it's pulling through, it reads the sheet. Okay. We have no outputs, not doing anything yet. So we just have read the sheet. All right. And we can see that not only can we see the amount of credits that every single node used, we can also see the total credits and the runtime to do this entire thing. So it took 2 seconds, and it used 1 credit out of your total credit account to run this node. So that's basics of inputs and outputs. Let's go ahead and look at some other stuff. So let's just type, say, hello world. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go and we're going to, my Google account is already linked. So we're going to create a new thing here, and we're going to use this for, let's just call this sheet GumLoop Basics Course. And so what we'll just say is, we'll say input. Now, whenever you're doing anything with GumLoop, you're probably going to need to have some sort of header system. And so you're going to say, you're going to put in your headers here, what this is. And yeah, we'll figure out what we're going to build in the next video. But for now, let's just go ahead and take a look at what this is. So we'll just type this as input, and you as input. Let's call you input 1, and you as input 1. There we go. All right, so now let's go ahead and say, let's actually take a look at using some AI instead. So let's call this AI prompt. AI. And what we want to do is we want to call this AI prompt as well. and then we're going to get output or AI response. Let's do AI response. So let's just do a simple question and answer. Okay. And so for question, we're going to say, what is the weather today? Maybe we're asking a series of questions of the AI. What is the weather today? What is the weather tomorrow? And when is it? 3 p.m. In California, um, in Florida. All right, so um, just some simple stuff. We'll get some better. We'll see what the AI comes up with, right? So our input here is we're going to delete this. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to actually, let's just delete this entirely. And we're going to start with a Google Sheet. So we're going to pick a sheet now. So I already have this linked. We can go and we can pull in that entire sheet that I just made, select it, and then we can use whichever sheet. So sheet 1. And then we're going to configure this, and we're going to search by, get the rows. We don't need a search column. We're not actually searching anything. We're just going to be reading some stuff. So then what we're going to do is we're going to, it's going to pull basically everything from there. It's going to read every single row that we have. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to say, now we're going to start using some AI. So we're going to ask AI, or we could do something like OpenAI Assistant. We can engage in a conversation, or we could, which is more for like if you have a lot of different conversations. So, say you are working with like a text bot or something like that. You could do that, or you have it within this interface here. You could do that as well. So for this one here, we're just going to do the Ask AI. So we're going to pull this down, we're going to do this, and because we have multiple rows in here, we're going to run this in loop mode. And so basically what's going to happen is for every single row, it's going to run this same thing and then spit something out. And so it's expecting a list. And so what we're going to say is the prompt is just going to be the prompt list. Okay, so instead of giving it anything else or asking anything else, we're basically just feeding it this here. And so we'll give that there. And then underneath that, we can select which model we want to use. And so a quick note on nodes to kind of estimate the cost of all this stuff before you just like start building this big thing and running it and seeing how much it costs you. You can actually look at every single node here and you can see how much the cost of these nodes are going to be, right? So if I had my OpenAI API key, I could create that credentials inside my GumLoop account and it would only cost me 1. If it was a standard AI model, which it basically tells you which one it is, advanced, expert, or standard, you can see what those AI costs are. If it will, there we go. 2 for standard, 20 for advanced AI models, and 30 for expert AI models. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how much is this going to cost me for my stuff. I'm just going to use the 4.1 mini because it's a simple question. So I could ask that. And then what I could do is I'll say, now what I need to do is we are going to update those rows, right? So we got this here. And we're going to pick the file. And we're going to pick that same one. And then we got the sheet. We got the columns that we can update. bunch of different stuff. We can use a link if we wanted to. We can see the name, and we can also see what we're searching by. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to pull this down here. We're connecting the flows. And then what we're going to do is, what is the search value? So we can see down here, the column that we're searching is the AI prompt column right here. And we're going to give the AI prompt value. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this here and we're going to pass this down and we're going to loop mode as well. And so the search value is going to be this AI prompt list. That way for the first one, it's going to do it. So as this one here comes to the first row, it's going to run this, and then it's going to search for it, and it's going to update this selected value. So we can actually go down to the columns here that we want to update. So these columns are the things that we want to update. And so we don't need to update the AI prompt, and we can get rid of websites because I'm not actually doing that. So we're only going to be updating the AI response. And so we're going to take, using AI, ask AI, the response from that, the response list, and we're going to put it right into the AI response. And it's going to update that value within this Google sheet here. And then it will just keep doing that for every single one of those. So now if we save this and we run this, I'm going to see that it's running and asking. And it looks like it doesn't really have any of that data. So all right, and so as you can kind of see, going through this, we were able to test out that we're not able to get any of this data, and so we can go back and we tested this out. We see that it costs 7 credits, but it didn't do exactly what we want it to do, and so we can say, okay, how do we get it to pull that live data that we want? And so what we could do is we could search for a couple things. We could search for like web. We could have it crawl the website. We could have it perform a web search. We could have it do AI web research. Perplexity could do web research. There's a bunch of different stuff that you can do here to see what it is that you want to do, right? And what I would do in this situation, especially for something this simple, obviously making something like this isn't realistic and I wouldn't ever want to do this. So I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on this use case. So I'd be looking at like, what are all the different costs for this thing here? And I would be probably using the cheapest cost tool. So just kind of looking at a couple of these here, Perplexity, doing a Google search or AI web research. What I probably want to use is this web research one by Google, or the Perplexity one, simply because it's so much cheaper. So just to keep it simple, we're just going to do the Google web research. And what I'd probably do is I would take this and I would go here and I would make it run this web search before I asked the AI. And so I'd do this here and I would have the query be this AI prompt list. This is going to run in loop mode, and you can see that that automatically actually turned on to loop mode. So it could see that this is a list of things, and it automatically would turn to a loop mode. And so we'll just get the first result. So every result, how many results should it retrieve? And then we could turn on advanced scraping or advanced search if we really want to. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to pull this and we're going to pull it down here. And once we've done this web search, we can then say, we would change this prompt a little bit. We'd say, utilizing the results of the web search. And I'd probably put it in like parentheses here. Let's see, this did a URL list of lists. So instead of that, what we might want to do, what I'd probably do is I'd probably do a web scraper. And this only costs 1 tool or 1 credit here to use the basic version of this. You can turn on advanced scraping, which will add an extra credit. But basically what we do is we'd say, okay, this all the URLs that we're going to get, do the list of lists, and this is going to turn on loop mode because this is a list, obviously, and list expected, list received. Okay, so we're going to do something first. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit confusing here. This is where some of the more advanced stuff comes in. So as we are getting all these different lists and it's researching stuff and getting stuff, what happens sometimes is you're going to end up getting lots of lists or whatever. And so you can either get a specific item from a list. So if I say this is a list of lists that is being sent out of here. And so what we could do is we could say get the first list item. And so if we have a list of lists that we're putting in here, and what we could do is we could say the first item, which is going to be 0. And so this is going to get the first list out of the multiples of lists. All right. And so we're going to pull that down into the web scraper. And then what we do is we pull this all into here. This is going to get the item. Yeah, so this is creating a list of URLs that's only one result long. There's one URL, but it is technically a list. And so think of this as code. So this creates an array of URLs for this prompt. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to say we want the first item of every single array of URLs. So index 0 of this list. And it is going to scrape that URL for every list. And then it's going to fit this in. So utilizing the results of the web search, and in parentheses, I would probably put in, or I'd do something like this actually. I'd say, utilizing the results of the web search, I want you to answer the question. And so I'd say web search results. And then this here would be the website content. And then I would say question. And then I'd make certain that the prompt list is there. And so it has the context as well as the data that it needs to fulfill this context prompt. And then going in here, it will still update exactly as it is. So we built out think of this as we built this whole thing out so that it can have the data in order to hopefully answer those questions about the weather. So we would save this, and I can kind of see two. So this was 7 before, so 7, 8, 9. This can be 9. There should be about 10 credits, somewhere around 10 credits, maybe a little bit more based off of this AI one here. So let's go ahead and give this another run. I'm going ahead and delete this information out of here, and we will run this again. So you see it's going through, got all that. It did the web research, got the list items, and now it's scraping those sites. Anytime you add in like a website scraper or anything like that, it's going to take usually a little bit longer just to kind of, because it's an agent that actually has to go and kind of understand all the text basically, or anything that's on that website link. So we could open this up even, and we could see what this individual thing is, and we can see like, okay, what is the actual thing here? And so like obviously we didn't give it a city to check out, so who knows? It looks like it's looking for Manhattan, New York, and for tomorrow it's looking for Washington DC, and then it's doing the world clock to figure out the time zone changes. So it's still analyzing the data. All right, and so now we can see that it's finished that. It took a while, it looks like just a little over 2 minutes, about 2.5 minutes, just to scrape those websites and get the relevant data. And then we can always see what we can click into one of these things and we can see what actually happened here, right? So we can see the response that it came back today in Manhattan, whether it's foggy, tomorrow, Washington, D.C., whatever, based on the prep of Calvin. Yeah. And then we can see the prompt. What is the weather today? All that stuff, right? So we can see all the inputs and the outputs from each one of these things here to see what everything was. We can see the website content, all that good stuff. And if we go over to the spreadsheet, we can see that. Let's go ahead and do this here to make it a little bit more readable. Today in Manhattan, the weather is foggy with mist, blah, 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 blah. Tomorrow in Washington, D.C., the weather will be partially cloudy, all that good stuff. Based on the provided information, California is 3 hours behind Florida. So, yeah, that's how some of this stuff works. And so in the next video, what we're going to take a look at is the interface and a couple more advanced nodes. And we're going to start working on an actual little thing that you can follow along with, just to kind of help give you an idea of how to build these different workflows out. Yeah, that's the basics for nodes. We took a look at inputs and outputs and how the data flows in between all of these different nodes. So yeah, on the next one, we'll take a look at interfaces and some more nodes. See you around.